You're listening to the Accessibility Corner on Dialogue Radio Network with your host George Zavala. The Accessibility Corner will provide you with topics and resources for our local community of people with disabilities. The Accessibility Corner is brought to you by the law offices of Stephanie Townsend Alala and Associates.
So, here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get the party started.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Accessibility Corner here on Dialogue Radio Network. And I hope everyone liked that intro. I did it myself, so with my computer talking software. But today we have the pleasure of, well, first of all, today is September the 7th, the Accessibility Corner here on Dialogue Radio Network. We're brought to you by the law office of Stephanie Townsend and Ayala. Stephanie Townsend and Associate. I'm sorry about that, Ms. Ayala. And of course, here in the room we have Mr. Abel Rodriguez. Our tech support is Leonard Lyde. My wife, of course, Ms. Limon, our special guest, and of course myself. And first of all, want to say everyone, thank you for tuning in. You can always come back here to the Dialogue Radio Network to listen to the podcast. And so now that we're going to go ahead and introduce Ms. Limon, she was a former city rep for District 7. She was a very good advocate and champion for our community of people with disabilities, and that's why we invited her to come on to kind of give her perspective and to really say thank you, Ms. Limon. So first of all, hello, Ms. Limon.
Good afternoon. How are you today, George?
I'm doing great.
Thank you for the invitation. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, man. So just, I know people know you, Ms. Limon, but just to get that can you tell us a little background about yourself?
Well, as you said, I am a retired city representative. I represented District 7, but my lifelong career has been in education. I'm a retired educator, worked for 29 years in the Isleta Independent School District. So a little plug for them, the district, certainly the best district in El Paso right now. I did that, for 29 years. Education has always been my love. Worked with at-risk youth. I think I've always looked out for those that didn't quite fit into the regular school system, those with special needs, special classes for students, and that was a student population that I worked the most with. And so after life, after being a city representative, I spent 3 weeks on vacation in Mexico, and now just really enjoying and, not waking up so early. Still keeping up with things and very active. I am a part of the MASI board and certainly looking at making sure that the MAC is a reality in the city of El Paso. So that's kind of like the stuff that I've been working on lately.
And what's the name of the board?
MASI, which is the Mexican American Cultural Institute, which is the board of that is going to be in big part a private-public partnership with the city of El Paso to ensure that we have a Mexican American Cultural Center.
Awesome.
And so we've been working on this. It is a very slow process, but we have an incredible board. Congressman Silvestre Reyes is the president. Belen Robles is the secretary, and Judge Alicia Chacon is the treasurer. And so it's a very strong group of people. We're going to make sure, just like you're working on accessibility issues, we're also working not only at those issues within the Abraham Chavez Theater, that those need to be repaired, those need to be done. Because if you really look at the Abraham Chavez Theater, it is not ADA accessible.
No, it's not.
And so that's something that the city has overlooked for years and years and years and years. And we are looking at building almost like a bustle around the Abraham Chavez Theater, and then, really putting the city's feet to the fire and saying, this is a city-owned building. How dare it not be fully ADA accessible? So those are, we're kind of championing two issues. One, the construction of the cultural center, but at the same time making sure that the city lives up to the expectations that any other business, any other venture here in El Paso is supposed to be up to.
And one thing I did notice when you were on the council, Ms. Limon, is that you brought issues that other council. Now, I'm not talking bad; it's not negative, but I did notice my observation is that you brought items to where it really affected people. Like, for example, I know you were a big champion for us, But I also noticed you're a champion for those who want a living wage.
I did. And I guess that's the kind of agenda that I really was working for. I could not understand how we would provide contracts to vendors and then allow them to hire people within our city, and they were being paid $7.25 an hour. I could see some horrible disproportion of funding there. One of the years I asked, the year that the overall increase was going to take place, and I said, don't give a salary increase to those people that have received a sizable increase in the last 3 years. And just in that, you looked at the top echelon, and that was enough money that could have afforded people a better salary. And that just went by the wayside. I think that when the city manager was horribly awarded a $60,000 salary increase a year, that was sufficient to have hired several employees at a $10 an hour raise. And when you look at the minimum wage and you look at the living wage in El Paso is about between $14 and $16. But imagine a security guard at City Hall with a gun being paid $7.25. I mean, it's obscene. With it also was my big concern. We were giving all these incentives to businesses that wanted to work or wanted to expand, and I kept saying, we're giving this money away, and what kind of jobs are we going to get in return? When you look at the entertainment industry, you're going to have a very small number of people receiving a high salary. Your management. Who really runs and operates those businesses are young kids.
Yep.
And so you're paying them $7.25 an hour, and so the few at the very top and the corporate venue is certainly earning lots and lots of money and getting it off of the backs of the taxpayers of El Paso. So those are the kinds of issues. Municipal ID was very critical. It still is. I'm saddened that the council members did not put that one forth, to the degree that it could have been something that was of good to a lot of people. I think it was labeled an immigrant issue. It is a people issue. It applies to our young people who are no longer in high school and don't have an ID, people that are not, maybe can't get to a Texas Department of Public Safety. It applied to my mother. My mother is a resident citizen, but she no longer drives, so she really doesn't have an ID. Homeless people, just a lot of people, but it was garbed as an immigrant issue. And some people thought, oh, we're just going to give the house away. Pretty much like DACA is going through right now. The premise that if we get rid of the 800,000 DACA youth, that's going to solve the economy and the economic issue of joblessness in the United States. That's not true. That's crazy. It's just, talk. So yeah, those were the kinds of issues that I took on. I don't know if people remember this, but I was the one that brought up the restroom issue at the Placita de los Lagartos, and it's still going on. It's like, and I thought at the time, oh my God, my legacy is going to be restrooms at the Placita, but it just hasn't quite gotten to that point yet.
Well, the thing is, and what you're saying about the ID, if you really want to take it away from immigrants, like you were saying, which is not true, it's not just immigrants, how about those with a disability? Those that can't leave the home, or those that, like for my mom, that can't walk, that want to maybe go somewhere else. So I kind of see where you're saying that.
Yeah, it did have a lot of uses, and it had a lot of potential. And I think, unfortunately, it came too soon after a new council came in. I don't think that there was adequate time to bring it. But it also comes from the leadership. If the mayor is not in support of it, the people that ran with him and are part of that group, they're going to vote along with him, and that's exactly what we saw. And so if it had been maybe a little bit longer time for better information, then it would have had a better chance. I know that I was very much one that would ask, hey, I need to know more about this. Let's postpone this. Bring it back because I don't understand it. It's critical. We can't just, vote for the sake of voting. If we vote, we need to know what we're voting for and the consequences. Unfortunately, we've seen several issues that have been reversed now by this council. I'm looking back and I cannot think of anything that we as a council reversed from a previous council. In other words, we really took it to heart that whatever they had said, that it was a council, it was a decision, but now we've seen several things that have been overruled. So we'll see how it goes.
And talking about the council, Ms. Limon, for those listeners don't realize that there's 6 new council members? Or am I off? 5 or 6?
There's 3 council persons, so 5 new ones and the mayor. So okay. You're right, it was a total of 6.
So what I'm trying to say with that is that was your being one of our champions in the last city council, it was amazing that a lot of our issues were brought to fruition under your council. When I say your council, because you and the mayor were really big advocates. By the way, the mayor was supposed to be here, but he had a scheduling conflict, so hopefully I'll have him on the later show. But that's why I want listeners to know that, Ms. Limon, that you listened to us even on the one-to-one issue when we came to you regarding the Lighthouse for the Blind initiative. That kind of died off, unfortunately, because I think it would have been progressed more if you were still in office. Because as of today, it's kind of not existent anymore. That's shameful.
And that's really a shame. I did take the time to travel to San Antonio and actually visit the Lighthouse for the Blind. What a fantastic opportunity there is. And so I got to go in, I got to see the products that they were producing, got to visit with employees. And the lady who is the director was ready to hop on a plane if there could be an agreement to have an organization of the Lighthouse for the Blind here, because she knows that there's a lot of contracts that can come about with the expansion. And so unfortunately, we weren't able to push it all the way through. But if you really think about it, it really wasn't just an ADA issue. It wasn't an accessibility issue. It was an economic issue. Yep. I mean, if people had really thought about it, this was a way to garner all these employment opportunities at good wages, not even at $7.25. And I feel very strongly that when people work, there's a certain amount of pride in what they do. And I walked through there, and it was almost like a family. It was a family environment at the Lighthouse for the Blind, and I'm just real sorry that it didn't progress. But maybe we're one step back today, but give it some time and we might take 2 forward. I very strongly spoke to Shane Mattingly about it and said, hey, I'm willing to volunteer and work with you guys to make sure that we get that going. So today we're 1 back. Tomorrow you may be 2 steps ahead. Keep it in mind.
And Mike Palamad, I don't know if you met the gentleman.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, he was supposed to be here, but he got sick. He had to roll back. He called me this morning. I'm like, you know what? Don't even show up. But me and him have been talking about, and others, about really, like how you said, it might be a setback now, but we'll let it sit, and then we're going to approach it later. And like you were saying, Ms. Limon, people with disabilities, our population is very high unemployment. What does that contribute to? For us to be number 1 on social services like Medicaid, food stamps, and we don't contribute to the tax base. And when you hire people with disabilities, like the Lighthouse would, it would take us off those social services and then put us in a position where we can contribute economically to society.
Yes.
And that's where I don't understand where the community leaders, like the mayor, the new mayor, city manager, doesn't really emphasize like the hiring of people with disabilities within the city. But yet, the Lighthouse, just to let everyone, our listeners know, the Lighthouse is a type of facility, and the one in Austin or San Antonio is pretty big, right?
It's huge. It's huge.
And it has what it does, that type of facility that has employment for persons with disability, and it has also contracts like state and federal, right, ma'am?
Yes, they do.
And they also have rehab, vocational training. So that type of facility would be perfect here in El Paso, because ours, unfortunately, disappeared, 2 years ago. And like I said, Ms. Limon, like always, you stepped forward with that initiative to help us with the city, because we did reach out to the others, by the way. We did reach out to the others and kind of like a deaf ear. So another thing you're trying to help us with, too, was disabled parking.
Oh, yeah.
The mobility parking.
Yeah, the parking mobility issue has certainly been something that is so frustrating. I think that when you see someone using a space, but you know that the placard that they're using belongs to the husband, but doesn't apply to the wife. So the wife goes shopping and then uses one of those spaces because she's got the placard. I think that is it's unconscionable.
And like me, I'm being visually impaired, and people say, "Why don't you get a placard?" Well, you know what? I don't need it. I can walk. I can walk to where I need to do. Trust me, I need to walk. But the point is that you're right, Ms. Limon, and that where it comes, where disability awareness comes into play, where we can educate the society, hopefully through this kind of dialogue, what it means to when you park in a disabled parking that's not meant, or is not for you. It's meant for someone that really has a disability, that has to be in the wheelchair, that needs to get out to their van. So, like I said, Ms. Limon, you do really step up to the base. I really appreciate that. But the first of all, I want you to say, what's your perspective now that you've been through the government, and now that you're a retired city rep? What's your perspective on accessibility?
Well, accessibility will continue to be a top issue within the city. One of the things that I was very concerned about was the issue of not moving forward with ensuring that accessibility issues are covered. Let me give you the example. So there was a restaurant and it closed down, and now it opens up again. That restaurant does not have to meet ADA accessibility issues unless they're doing some remodeling. And my focus was, no, if a restaurant closes down, the facility closes down, and a new one comes up, then they need to meet the ADA accessibility issues that we have. It is only by doing that. Unfortunately, that might be someone with a heart kind of thinking. And you're going up against someone with money, and someone who says, no, if we force people to do this, they're not going to open up these restaurants. Well, we're making it easy for them. We're saying, okay, open up the restaurant. You don't have to meet ADA accessibilities because we're going to grandfather the building. I say no more grandfathering, because we're never going to get to that point where we have full accessibility if we don't take the bull by the horns. And I brought that up, and I wanted that to be an issue, and it was just kept pushing off the table and pushing off the table. And it was, unfortunately, many times the chambers are looking after their members who are business people, and that's what they represent. They represent business. They don't represent the people.
Nope.
And so we're seeing it from opposite angles. They're looking out for what's good for the businessman or woman, and we're looking at the issues of accessibility.
For 2 years, Ms. Limon, 2 years, I've been trying to reach out to the president for the El Paso Restaurant Association so we could go into their meetings and educate their owners. But yet, they, like you say, I think they're afraid of the economics. They're not really thinking of what's the law. And unfortunately, that kind of hinders our process to be more inclusive into society. Because a lot of times, business owners will look at that money instead of seeing the human side of it. And that's where individuals like you, Ms. Limon, something like that is very important, because I want to explain to the listeners. Ms. Limon was saying that, for example, if a restaurant is a restaurant for 40 years, guess what? They don't have to be compliant until that certificate of occupancy has changed, maybe to a barbershop, or then that would trigger. So what you're trying to do, man, makes sense. But yet it didn't pass. That's what
it didn't, and it's it's the business, it's the money. Money talks in these cases. But your idea, George, of visiting with the restaurant association, I think it's a very valid, and people need to understand. I remember distinctly one time getting a message from you, and you were concerned because the McDonald's on Zaragoza, that on the ramp, the pavement was getting kind of pitted and what have you. And so I reached out to Richard Castro, and he said, my goodness, yeah, it'll get done. And it did. It got done very, very quickly. And Richard said, I'm friends with them. He said, they can just call me. Make sure that they just call me. See, that's a friend. Yes. He knows how important full accessibility is for his business. And so he took care of the issue, whereas other people may hide from the issues that are up ahead.
And actually, Ms. Limon, every time I reached out to you by email or whatnot, you were always quick to respond to not only me, but to others. And I know from that McDonald's situation, listeners, she's that same day or not the next day you responded, and I'm like, wow. So that just shows who you are, Ms. Limon. Not you're a politician, yes, but you know what? You have other things to do. You could have said, you know what? I'll let my representative, I'll let my assistant handle this. But you actually called.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that's
yeah.
what I'm trying to show, that there are politicians out there, former city reps, that do care. And unfortunately, you were not extended your chance to be back on the city council. But have you ever thought of going back to maybe a mayor or something?
Not at this time. No,
okay.
I think that at this time, the best thing that I'm doing is just really enjoying life. Like I said, it took a really good three-week vacation. I hadn't done that since the 70s, and took a 3-week vacation. Just really enjoyed it. Doing a lot of traveling, those kinds of things. Art. Take an art class at UTEP. Oh, life is really good.
I bet,
Not that I'm not concerned. I am concerned. I'm very focused on what's happening with Duranguito. I'm very focused with what's happening at Lincoln Center, the Mexican American Cultural Center. All the top issues. And I'm also concerned. I'm got my eye out on the Children's Museum. I want to make sure that it really is a top-notch facility. And so, George, I'm as close as a phone call, an email, Facebook. You know how to reach me, and I'm always available.
You're on Facebook. What's can people find you on Facebook, right?
Right, Lily Limon on
Lily
Facebook.
Limon.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and she's very approachable. Folks out there, listeners, you have an issue. I know you have contacts, Miss Limon, and reach out to her, and she'll help. I mean, she really will. See, when you're a politician, you have your duties, and we've talked to many of you know that, Miss Limon. And just recently, we had talked to all the new city reps, and some of them don't get it. And it's rare that you find that one that really understands, which you did, and the mayor. So hopefully, if you ever go back into politics, you have our support.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So
you'll hear the music.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and break for a little bit.
You got time?
Oh, we still have time. I'm sorry. See what happens. What happens, folks? Abel's showing me signs, and I can't see him. So, ¿qué pues, Abel? Not really. But,
Sorry, I'm sorry.
So, do you have any fundraiser? I think you had a fundraiser going on or something, didn't you? Mr.
No. I'm done. Thank God I'm done with that business. I am just like I tell you, looking at a variety of activities. The Mexican American Cultural Center, Lincoln Center. Lincoln Center has a very special place in my heart, and I really think that within the next few months we might have a very good announcement of what's coming up, and just.
Is that the one that they wanted to raise, what, $20 million?
No, it's the one they wanted to knock down. And I'll tell you what, if it hadn't been for Mayor Leeser, who tendered a restraining order, that building would be demolished.
It would have been demolished,
today.
absolutely.
I mean, it would have been gone. I thank, Mayor Leeser was really instrumental in that. And I see him every so often. We have breakfast. Okay. So I'll remind him that he needs to come on the show.
Yes, ma'am, please. I know he's busy. I know he's a busy man.
I know he is. I think he's even out of town. He had a wedding coming up this weekend that he was headed to. And so, but he's a dear friend.
Do you still communicate with former
He's a dear friend of mine.
Do you still communicate with other members or not?
Not with other members on council because you're not allowed to. But
you're not?
No,
okay.
you're restricted from talking to them.
Oh,
so.
really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we could talk to you anyways, right?
You can always talk to me. I have no restrictions. Thank God I'm not in this government anymore.
I just want to tell you, you're always welcome to come on the show, Ms. Limon, because you have many things to offer to our listeners regarding topics that are relevant within the city. From the Chicanos, what was the name of the facility you wanted?
The Mexican American Cultural Center, the MAC. Okay. Let's just call it the MAC.
The MAC, okay.
There you go.
And to even things with accessibility, because you also helped with us with the lift. With the
Oh, yeah.
paratransit.
Oh, boy, did we ever.
Yeah.
We had a lot of issues. And you know what? Thank God we were able to make some changes. You might recall the lady that was in charge before.
Yes.
It was not a good working relationship. And thus, we were able to bring about that change. Having Julio Perez on really helped out a lot. We went through several accessibility coordinators, right?
Yes.
Until Julio kind of stepped into the place. And so we certainly found someone that had a little bit of heart, and that was a better working relationship. There were horror stories that we went through,
Yes.
George, and thank God that those are over or not as frequent
Yes, ma'am.
as they were. I think accessibility issues were like on my top plate there in the beginning because there were so many issues, so many concerns, and thanks to the funding that was available, there were a whole bunch of curb cuts. But we need to do more. I mean, we're not finished. That was only scratching the surface.
Well, Ms. Limon, I want to tell our listeners, too, that back in 2 years ago, más o menos, Ms. Limon was one of those champions that when we asked for funding for the on-demand program, you were there.
Yep.
And actually, the city, which hasn't done in many years before you, Ms. Limon, they allocated $500,000 this year, or last year and this year. So you, Ms. Limon, have really made an impact, which you don't know. And we appreciate that because those $500,000 may seem a lot to some people, but that makes life changes for people that want to navigate the city.
Yeah.
And with that kind of funding, with that kind of heart, that's impossible. So that's one thing, Mr. Limon, that we really want to appreciate for you.
Well,
doing
thank
that.
you. I hope never to see someone in a wheelchair on Carolina on the street. That is in the night, and that is so scary, and we really need people to acknowledge and understand what our people are going through when they have to go on.
Before we leave, I want to applaud you, Ms. Limon. I want to do this on this. I want to applaud you for that. What you did, the name of change for the park.
Officer David Ortiz.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really awesome.
Yeah, the family is an incredible family. A young man who gave up his life. He was killed in a cowardly act.
Yes, ma'am.
And we just don't want that to ever be forgotten. And so we will continue to honor the name of Officer David
Amen.
Ortiz.
Yes, thank you for that, Ms. Limon. Well, of course, this is Ms. Lily Limon. Ms. Limon, you're always welcome to come back. This half an hour went quick. Wow, that was quick. And so everyone will come back to after break. And this is the Accessibility Corner on Dialogue Radio Network.
I'm Jessica Clute, attorney at law. The law firm of Stephanie Townsend Ayala and Associates specializes in estate planning, probate, trusts, wills, powers of attorney, nursing home advocacy, Medicaid planning, and guardianships.
I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala. Our attorneys, including Jennifer Coulter, my daughter Jessica, and I, are University of Texas Law School graduates. Jessica and I are also proud second and third generation University of Texas grads. Call the law firm of Stephanie Townsend Ayala at 533-0007.
Accessibility Corner here on Dialogue Radio Network. And Abel, I like that music. I need a copy of that. That is some awesome music. It really is. So I hope everyone enjoyed our interview with Ms. Lily Limon, retired city representative for District 7. And today, in the second part, we're honored actually to have Mr. David Nevarez. And he's we're going to talk about two things about post-traumatic syndrome and also the initiative he's doing with the National Desert Storm Memorial. So first of all, hello, Mr. Nevarez. How you doing, sir?
George, how are you?
Pretty good, sir.
Afternoon.
Can you just give everyone a background on yourself, sir, please?
My background, I spent 10 years in the Marine Corps. I'm a Desert Storm veteran. 27 years ago, I was involved in Desert Storm. I was part of 5th Marine Regiment. I'm the former chair of the Veterans Affairs Advisory Committee, City of El Paso. I'm a veterans advocate, activist. Somebody puts me in that light. And, that's pretty much what I do 24/7. And that's about it.
I know you're quite busy. I see you on Facebook. I'm like, man, this man's
I'm everywhere.
all over the place.
I'm everywhere. I'm helping. Right now, I'm helping some family that's been displaced from Harvey and getting them the things that they need. And
so you're from that area, aren't you?
I'm from that area.
You're from
I was raised in Victoria, Texas. I graduated in '83 from Stroman High School.
Victoria, that's when the city was hit, right?
Yes.
Oh wow, yes.
A lot of family were right around the eye wall, and some of them lost homes and so on and so forth. So we help each other out, and I was able to get some funds together and a few convoys of supplies down there,
Awesome.
and we're holding on. We're doing good.
Well, before we continue on, before I forget, I want to say first of all, thank you for your service to our country, because people like you that have the gusto to volunteer, I appreciate that. Especially
it's been in my blood. It's been in my blood since the Mexican-American War.
Really?
We've been in uniform now.
That's when Naval's around. So
yeah, probably.
And a friend of mine, Mr. Mike Palamar, was going to be here to co-host, but he wasn't able to be here. But he has some questions, and later on, maybe we could step in with those questions. But first of all, we want to talk about something that really impacts a lot of soldiers leaving. And I know for a fact that one of my nieces is affected by this, is post-traumatic syndrome.
Right.
And people don't realize that's actually a disability.
It is.
And from your experience, I mean, what would you say in your experience?
Well, as far as if you want to talk about the way I was discharged out, you go through a checklist of when you're checking out, and after Desert Storm, there really wasn't anything in place as far as a mental checkup. My mental checkup went like this. The doctor saw that I was a plumber and saw that I was in a conflict, and I saw some action. He says, well, you're a construction worker. Go back to construction. You'll be all right.
Wow. So you're just...
I had to do my own research, my own rehab, and I had to create my own things,
So that's changed from now, or?
Yeah, it's changed.
Okay.
It's more thorough in some aspects. You have the Wounded Warrior Regiment out here at Fort Bliss, and they do a job. They do their job. They identify the needs of the soldiers, as well as the Marine Corps. When everybody has this checkout procedure, and you do have a mental health checkout, and you do go to the VA to begin the process of getting your benefits and getting your diagnosis.
Do you have veterans reaching out to you?
I have quite a few veterans at times reaching out to me, and they want to know who to talk to, how to get their things done, and I lean on about 4 let me explain this. Within the veteran service organizations of VFW, American Legion, and all that, there's these individuals called veteran service officers, and they work benefits.
Okay.
You do have benefits counselors at the VA, but it's very generic,
But can someone? Is it okay if we get out your contact information? Do you mind? Okay. Go ahead and give your phone number.
My phone number is 915-407-0826. Now, like I said, there's about 4 different individuals that I lean on and I direct them to. One of my favorite guys is Ron Holmes out of American Legion Post 58. He's done over 5,000 claims. He used to work for former Congressman Reyes. He has about a 98% success rate.
Really?
There's Virginia Molina. A really great gal. She has deep connections in the VA. She'll do the VA video conference with them.
Now, here in El Paso, I know there's a VA, of course,
right.
But do you know there's any support systems out there?
There is peer support groups. There's There's oh my God, UBH that helps out, and there's other non-clinical environments. I'm a big fan of a veterans nonprofit. Stephen Mills does peer support there out of his place where the old headstands used to be. You know, a lot of veterans are very apprehensive to like lab coats and talking to a doc, so they prefer talking to somebody just in regular street clothes and getting their issues out that way.
For you coming, because of like me not being never in the military, and I wish I would have, right? But when you come out of the military, when you came out yourself, what was the process? How long did it take to acclimate to the society?
It took me a good, I don't know, a sense of normalcy almost took me about 5 years. Because,
Really?
I understand you're living in a structured lifestyle. You're being told what to wear, when to eat, where to go. You have to.
Hey, wait a minute! That's my wife does that.
Oh, yeah. Let's just say, and then couple that. It's a stressful environment, and then couple that coming out of a traumatic event, like a war or a shooting incident, or.
Because you were in actual Iraq.
I was in Kuwait. I got as far as to Tikrit. And prior to that, I was involved in a couple of skirmishers before that, as
really,
as post security, at like early age, 19, 20 years old.
So that what you experienced, you can't capture it on TV or No. So what you lived through, nobody can really experience it.
My traumatic experience can vary from somebody else's perspective. Not everybody's all the same.
True.
I can know what happened to me, and somebody else could see what happened to me and have a totally different story.
Amen to that. It's kind of funny you say that. Not to compare by no means, but like someone that's like myself that's blind, I'll tell someone my perspective that they'll really get it until like you say, you walk in those shoes. Yeah. But my Lord, you volunteered. Yeah. That's the biggest thing in the world. I appreciate that.
I volunteer, and I have some serious injuries. I have a 30 millimeter plate below my left leg. I have a right knee replacement. I walked around with a piece of shrapnel in my shoulder for about 10, 12 years before it worked itself out. And
whoa. What do you mean worked itself out?
I left it in. It was about as long as a bobby pin. What happened, there was an incident where a mine exploded, and the guy next to me lost part of his foot and his other foot. And I didn't realize what was going on. I got him to the aid station, and then when I got to our rear area, you're so full of adrenaline and you just want to get the job done, and my job, understand what my job is. My job was logistics.
Okay.
Every Marine's a rifleman, but I exceeded that. I learned how to do machine gunnery, and
the Marines are always the first to go in, right?
Yeah, you're always every Marine's a basic rifleman. You know how to shoot your weapon. You know how other weapon systems work, and I made sure I was quite efficient with that. But wow. The end of the story, got to my rear area and pull open my flak, and there's just blood, from my armpit and run down to my hip. I didn't know what the heck was going on, and I'm in it, and then get medevac to a ship. Doctor says, well, we can leave it in, or we can try to dig it out, but you may not have use of your left arm. So we'll just leave it in. A lot of veterans done that. One of our legendary generals, General Puller, had shrapnel in almost as big as his calf muscle.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of Confederate soldiers. A lot of us just leave it in.
And people don't realize it. Just now you're telling me being in the military really has dramatic impact to someone that we don't, as a citizen, that
right.
We don't realize that. And like I said, I'll keep saying it. I appreciate what you've done.
I take it. Serving your country and serving your community all works hand in hand. Everywhere I've been, I've served my community, El Toro to Japan, Korea, Philippines. I've always reached out to individuals, orphanages, burn units, cancer units, whatever.
I know you're active. Amen to that. I see you on Facebook. I think my wife, you have 2 questions now?
Yes, I do.
Introduce your wife correctly.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Lourdes.
My wife.
She's Ms. Lourdes Laders Fernandez. You can find her on Facebook. She's smart. She's a brains in the family. So I'm the looks.
And she's a caregiver.
Right.
She's also a PCA. She's a personal care attendant.
Yes, I am.
She knows the perspective of helping those that are just have a disability. So, and I also appreciate she goes through a lot too, but not, of course, not in the military. But dealing with me,
those caregivers that are out there really don't get the recognition they need, and a lot of caregivers in the VA got their checks pulled.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Really?
I didn't know that. Oh, wow.
Well, I've heard a lot of, I don't mean to jump in, George,
there's an individual you need to get on here named Lita Lewis. She's a caregiver.
But I've also heard that caregivers that deal with veterans are sometimes not as good as they could be.
Right.
Well, there was a story, wasn't there, in a newspaper where this gentleman, he was like 2 days or a day. He was on KBIA that he was out without a PCA, and I'm like, veterans.
Yeah,
that's something.
They're the ones that need it the most.
Yeah, I mean, because
wow.
I met a gentleman, Mr. Nevarez, that he was in the tank. He was in Afghanistan in a bomb. What do you call the improvised
IEDs?
IED. He got the tank got hit, and in an instant he lost both of his eyes. So now he's blind, and he still does marathons. He does. I mean, you name it. But before we go further, the question.
The questions. Mr. Navarro. Nevarez, I'm sorry. Nevarez. First and foremost, thank you very much, sir, for your service to our country.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. My first question to you, sir. Do you see our country and our present administration turning a blind eye to our veterans with PTSD?
I see our country making an effort, and it's getting stifled up on the Hill for whatever reason, whether it's a lobbyist or whether it's Shulkin or whoever. There's not enough reaching across the aisle to get things done within not only PCSD but veterans causes in general, and until we get to that point, I don't see the VA improving as far as mental health goes, as far as treating our service-connected disability veterans. I don't see it going much farther than what's going now. We haven't seen a cost of living increase in about 4 or 5 years now, and that was only $1.
Okay.
I mean, before I forget, Mr. Nevarez, if you want, we could give you contact information. It's called the Texas Personal Care Attendant of Texas. And if you want to give you the contact information, because they also deal with those people that are attendants do a lot.
Yes,
they make people with disabilities more inclusive into society and veterans.
Yeah.
And they don't get paid enough. They don't get vacations. They don't get holidays like my wife. They get 2 hours a day. And especially our veterans, I think our veterans deserve more than that, to be honest with you. I'm not gonna lie to you. And but I'm sorry, I'm cutting into you. You have another question?
Yes, you did. My second question, you're going to get it home. Okay. My second question, Mr. Nevarez. What do you think in our little corner of the world, here in El Paso, and member of the disabilities community, what can we do and help veterans with PTSD?
There's like I said, I lean a lot on Stephen Mills at Veterans Nonprofit. He can get you in touch with the Veterans Peer Network here in El Paso. UBH can also direct you in that and get the specific training or classes. That way, you can get more veterans out there and get the word spread out. I think a lot. Veterans talk to veterans a lot, and there's veterans that call me 2, 3 in the morning and want to talk through their issues, and okay, fine, we'll do this, and I have no problem doing it. And I'm talking, they can call me from Hawaii to Afghanistan, Japan, or even if it's FaceTime, whatever. And I'm on the line.
And your contact information, just for
my contact information is 915-407-0826. I know you guys. There's guys out there that have issues. We have 22 veterans a day committing suicide. Some of them even on VA property.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
They get fed up with the system. They're not getting the treatment we need. There was even a veteran that wasn't seen by behavioral health here locally for over 90 days, and he committed suicide.
Oh, what's a shame. That really is.
And I forget the lady's name, but she's always at Bethel's town halls, whether it's a veteran town hall or a regular town hall. But these are issues that we don't address. We'll never get a resolution. I know there's an individual, Mr. Bill Sparks, president of Veterans Business Association. There's a Desert Storm vet out in the county somewhere like a hermit. He don't want help. He doesn't want to do this. He just wants to live in his little bubble out in the desert, and we're trying to get him the help he needs.
And I've seen once in a while, people with disabilities, especially that there are recent developed with disabilities, in some ways, sometimes it happens.
Right.
It happened to me. I didn't want to talk to no one. I wanted to stay in the room, and so I bet you will reach him. I trust me, you will, sir. But I also want to talk about your national Desert Storm Memorial.
Right.
Tell us about that.
I'm one of the many fundraisers in National Desert Storm War Memorial. There's about 8 of us here in the state of Texas that are doing fundraisers for the memorial. Early this March, a joint resolution was signed by our president on St. Patrick's Day, and we should have the site we're looking at is 23rd and Constitution in Washington, D.C., and if you're looking at the Jefferson Memorial head-on, it's to the right corner. That's our primary site. The secondary site's across the Potomac. What I'm doing here, I'm in talks with Butterfield Trail to bring a PGA Pro-Am. I got a quote from Mr. Krebs, the general manager, and we're looking at the first weekend of September. I'm talking to businesses, I'm talking to banks to secure the funds for this.
How much is the memorial? Just an idea. How much is that?
The memorial itself is $25 million. We're looking at groundbreaking 2020, dedication 2021. There was over 636,000 of us that served in Desert Storm. 636,000 Americans, 383 KIA, 29 were Texans. None of them were El Pasoans.
Well, for my listeners, his contact information is on the Dialogue Radio Network. You go under guest contacts. And the reason I'm going to say this is because you do have a lot of fundraisers coming out. Are going to happen, right?
We're doing the Pro-Am once we get the funding in place, and we're looking at some celebrities coming to town.
You're talking about a PGA Tour?
A PGA Pro-Am.
Really?
And we're talking. We'll be talking to Rich Beam, some of the top golfers in the nation. It's looking like the first weekend of September, a Friday Saturday event. 144 people both days. Within our contacts at with our War Memorial, our committee members, we can bring pretty much whoever we want. Some of the big names that were in Desert Storm, Secretary of Defense Mattis, Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Bushes, right off the top of my head. Personally, I want Arnold Schwarzenegger because he owes me one military aircraft.
Talk about that.
Well, my deal was logistics, and before I left, before I went on ship, I put together the largest amphibious force in Korea. I was part of the logistical team. We put together 22 ships, 10,000 Marines and sailors, 349 aircraft. Arnold took one of our aircraft and threw gym equipment in there. We had a saying, "Don't go to war without your Bowflex."
That is sad, really.
But
what year was it?
This was 91.
Before you was governor.
We left San Diego day after Thanksgiving, hit the Philippines day after Christmas, and got into the Gulf January 12th.
So, when your time, how long were you there in the actual Gulf area? From
January till the end of March.
Okay. So what right now? How can we? If someone's listening, how much they want to help with the fundraiser?
If people want to help, they can go to my Facebook page, Texas Desert Storm Veterans. You can call me direct 915-407-0826. Reach out to me on Gmail, txmarine8292@gmail.
You're doing like enchiladas. You're doing.
I'm looking for people who want to do spaghetti dinners, enchilada dinners. Because right now I'm just a one-man show, and I'm looking for other individuals to help. I'll be talking to Applebee's as soon as I'm able to catch my breath to do like a pancake breakfast. To do a pancake breakfast, I want to get the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts involved, guest waiters like Commissioner Leon, who I talked to this morning, is interested. Probably some other notables as well within the city.
Really? That is neat. It's going to sound kind of weird, but for someone that's visually impaired or blind like myself, Well, we're going to go to a break. You're going to stay local, right?
Yeah.
We're going to go on a break. We're here on the Accessibility Corner here on Dialogue Radio Network, brought to you by Stephanie Townsend and Ayala. I'll go ahead and come back right after this break.
I'm Stephanie Townsend Ayala. At the law firm of Stephanie Townsend Ayala and Associates, our attorneys, including Jennifer Coulter and my own daughter, Jessica Clute, fight for the nursing home and home health care rights of the elderly and disabled.
I'm attorney Jessica Clute. The law firm of Stephanie Townsend Ayala also specializes in estate planning, probate, trusts, wills, powers of attorney, nursing home advocacy, Medicaid asset protection, and guardianships. Call us at 533-0007.
You're listening to the Accessibility Corner with George Zavala.
And welcome back here to the Accessibility Corner, once again here on Dialogue Radio Network. And again, you want to get contact information for Ms. Limon or even Mr. Nevarez, you go to www.dialogep.com. You can find our podcast that will be put on later today, or I'm sorry, whenever Mr. Abel, I'm sorry. I'm rushing him.
Come on now.
By the way, before we start, Mr. Abel, I want you to announce, please, your show this Saturday?
Yeah, we'll be doing our first dialogue radio show. Been off for a while, and we'll be doing it. Hector Montes will be joining me, and we're going from 9 to 11. We used to be on from 7 to 9, but we're going to go 9 to 11, and we're going to have the regular antics that we do and all the crazy stuff. And, of course, La Política, La Política, La Política.
you got it early. You got it on too early. I'm like, this is too early. You.
All right.
So, but I was going to ask you the question about for those who are visually impaired or blind, Mr. Nevada, how would that memorial look like?
Well, if you're able to see somewhat and you know what a comma looks like, that demonstrates the sweeping action of our forces as when Desert Storm kicked off. What happened was we looked like we were going to go in one direction. Iraqi forces counter or had their defenses up ready for that, and we just swept around them. And the amphibious force itself, we positioned ourselves. It was positioned on the coast. By the time that happened, ours already part of the forward element of 5th Marines. So ours already on the ground, and what that happened is spread out Iraqi forces really thin. We was able to get in behind them and really cut them off from the logistical chain. The war itself was 100 hours. The air war prior to us was 100 days.
100 days, wow. But how long were you in combat?
Myself, I was in theater officially from January 12th to the end of March in 91.
That's when you got hurt, right?
Yeah. Around that, I don't remember the day. Everything to me was a blur. You know, it was, I don't know. We trained so long to go to a desert environment, and when it was actually happening, to me it felt like a training exercise, the way everything went down.
Really?
We practiced for it for so long.
I remember when I could see back in 91, and I just remember that the image of, did soldiers actually walk up to you guys?
Yeah, they were surrendering left and right. They surrendered to what would now be drones, I guess. You know, they would surrender to helicopters. They would surrender to whatever, piece of equipment. And you got to understand, these guys were practically starved to death because they were so strung out from their supply. Some of these guys were full of lice.
Really?
Very extremely unkept.
How about the weather?
The weather was, I don't know. To me, I remember it being in the 50s and 60s, and then whenever they started burning the oil wells, to me, the sense to us was it was nuclear winter. Somebody set off a nuclear device.
Really?
You would have a clear day, and then the wind would shift, and it'd be like you're inside a planetarium. Dark.
And that's because the Iraqi forces were doing that, right?
Right.
To sabotage the oils.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember my history a little bit.
And those of you who are suffering effects of Desert Storm or Gulf War syndrome, research an article called The Plume. It has a listing of all the units that was there. If you were in the Plume like I was, you are entitled, or you can start benefits with specific ailments to that incident.
See, that's what it's important, folks, for my listeners, to reach out to Mr. Nevarez. You can do it on Facebook too, right, sir?
Yeah.
Reach out to Mr. Vada. He's a wealth of information, especially for our veterans, because at the end of the day, they did volunteer to serve,
Right.
and you did not volunteer to have the PSD. So how is that right now, sir? How are you?
What the Gulf War syndrome or my incident or my stuff?
yours.
My stuff is, I don't know. I started filing my claims in '98, and I'm 100% individual unemployable. I should be fully unemployable after December because of my ailment, mostly from my injuries, from my legs and my hips, and it's causing problems with my hips and my lower back. I have spinal stenosis. I have one hip that's fused in place on my left side, and so I look like a weeble, but who cares?
Hey, as long as you're okay, you can walk, and now you're all over. Like the other day, I saw you in the morning. You were at Walmart, and then later on in the day, I'm like, wow, this man's just all over the place.
I move. Well, I'm tired. I've been active before. I was a plumber. My family were ranch hands, farm hands, so I'm used to being busy.
Yes.
I don't like idle time on the couch.
And you're a plumber. Can you give a little history on that? You're a plumber.
It's in my family's blood. We've been plumbing since the 40s. I'm a 6th generation plumber. The 7th generation plumber in our family has a business in San Antonio, Core Plumbing, Kore, and he's just. I'm very proud of this young man. He's my great nephew, Frank Quiros, and he's getting it done. He's taken the business only in places that my dad and my uncle would only dream about.
But the thing is here in El Paso that I do appreciate, Mr. Nevada, is that you're making that effort for the National Desert Storm Memorial.
Right.
Because we can't, and I'm not going to go there with the statues and whatnot, but we can't forget our history.
No, we can't.
We can't. Our history, in my opinion, kind of just describes what's going on now. And if you don't know the history, you don't know your experience, Mr. Nevarez, what you've done, how you served, how you got injured, then we don't really appreciate who you are.
We saw what happened at the Capitol with our history books. They were trying to erase big chunks of what's been happening, and just among the veteran community itself, not just my era, you have Korea, World War II vets, Vietnam vets that are just walking legacies or history books, and we don't tap into their information.
I have my uncle's friend was telling me stories years ago about Vietnam and what he experienced, and I'm like, wow. And then so we, like I said, we don't really appreciate what you do.
Right.
When you volunteer. When did you start? When did you start your service? In '81?
I went in '82. I went in a year prior. We had delayed entry program, so I was still in high school. I was a junior in high school.
You were straight from high school then?
Yeah. My parents had to sign for me. My dad was like, "You sure you want to do this?" And yeah, I want to do it.
And especially, I mean,
he was Army. He was pushing me off and no, I don't want to stay in Texas or go to Germany. I want to see the world and blah blah blah.
And like you said, your history goes back 100 years.
We go back the Mexican-American War. We have family fought on both sides of the Mexican-American War. A lot of our family members that fought on the Mexican side originate from Jalisco.
And a lot of veterans that you will validate this. A lot of veterans do come out from the military with disabilities.
Yeah, we do.
So, Mr. Nevarez, we're coming to the end of our great show. I want to appreciate, applaud your willingness to do this for the National Desert Storm Memorial.
I'm always available, guys. If you want to talk about whether it's veterans issues, you want to talk about.
Yes, reach out to Mr.
Stuff
Nevarez.
that's going on in the city, let them reach out.
As you can see, he's very approachable, very nice gentleman, and of course, again, thank you for your service, sir. Thank you so much for that.
No problem.
Out there, our fellow
veterans. Yes.
Veterans.
You're all welcome to come back, sir, whenever you want.
Anytime.
I mean, this door's open to you. Not to Abel, but just to you, okay? So everyone, we're going to be back on September 21st. Our guest will be Ms. Lucia Dawson from the El Paso La Familia del Paso. And then we're also going to have in the second half Ms. Joy Acosta from Valar talk about the program they have there, which is very useful. So again, folks, if you want to come onto the show or you want to talk about your topic, you can always reach out to me at 915-832-1200. Go to the website, www.theaccessibilitycorner.com. There's a contact page there. And our podcast will also be available on dialogueep.com and theaccessibilitycorner.com. So we will see you again. And Abel, close it out for me, my friend, please.
And God bless the USA.
And God bless it. Yes, sir. Close it out for me.
Oops, let me go down here. Te guacho raza.